Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen's fingers danced across the holographic interface, her eyes never leaving the pulsing waveform. 3 days since the Pathfinder had intercepted the signal, and still it defied conventional decryption algorithms. Anything. Captain Sorensen loomed behind her, the bags under his eyes betraying his exhaustion. "It's not encrypted in any way I recognize," Maya replied. "It's almost as if." She paused, tilting her head as the waveform shifted again. "As if it's alive, adapting to our attempts to understand it." The signal had first appeared during routine patrol along the Arcturus corridor, a faint transmission that gradually increased in strength until it overwhelmed all other communications channels. What made it bizarre was its selective nature. Only human ships received it. The Luxarian trader vessel traveling alongside them hadn't detected a thing. Maya adjusted her neural implant, allowing the ship's AI direct access to her linguistic centers, a risky procedure she'd rarely attempted since the accident that had left her with synesthesia, experiencing sounds as colors and patterns. "No amenity, synchronize with my neural pathways," she commanded. "Let's try a different approach." The ship's AI responded with a gentle hum in her cerebral cortex. Neural synchronization initiated. "Warning. Significant strain detected in your Broca's area. Recommended duration. 3 minutes maximum." The control room fell silent as Maya closed her eyes, allowing the signal to flow directly into her mind. Colors exploded behind her eyelids, violent reds and pulsing oranges interspersed with deep, abyssal blues. The patterns weren't random. They formed structures, architectures of meaning that triggered something primal within her consciousness. "It's not a language," she whispered, her voice strange even to her own ears. "It's a memory." She saw flashes of enormous silhouettes against flame-lit skies, felt the ground tremble beneath massive footsteps. The images accelerated, compressing millennia into seconds, stone giants, metal colossi, then finally sleek technological titans standing guard over human settlements. With a gasp, Maya broke the neural connection, blood trickling from her nose. "I've got it," she said, fingers trembling as she recalibrated the communication array. It needed human neurology to complete the decryption. The main view screen flickered and resolved into a message, written in an archaic form of Sanskrit that slowly translated itself into modern English before their eyes. "Humans of Earth, the Devourers have breached containment in the Cygnus Arm. 17 cycles have passed since their last awakening. Your guardians must rise again. Wake your giants before the hunger reaches your shores." Coordinates follow. A series of stellar coordinates materialize below the message, pointing to a system at the edge of mapped space. "Giants." Captain Sorensen frowned. "What the hell does it mean by giants?" Before Maya could respond, the ship's proximity alarms blared. 3 vessels had emerged from FTL travel less than 10 kilometers from their position. Sleek, crystalline ships bearing the insignia of the Galactic Concord. "We're being hailed," the communications officer announced. "Priority diplomatic channel." The view screen shifted to reveal a tall, willowy figure with opalescent skin and eyes that reflected starlight like mirrors. Ambassador Thalix of the Concord spoke without preamble, his translator rendering his harmonic speech into clipped English. "The signal has found you. We feared as much." His expression was unreadable, but the subtle shift in his posture conveyed what his face could not: dread. "We must speak immediately regarding the containment protocols for the weapons you call giants. Our sensors detect none active in your system. Please confirm status." Maya and Captain Sorensen exchanged puzzled glances. "Ambassador," Sorensen replied carefully, "I'm afraid we have no knowledge of any weapons called giants." The ambassador's eyes widened fractionally. "Then it is worse than we feared," he whispered. "The cycle has begun again, and humanity has forgotten its purpose." Dr. Elijah Okonkwo had always believed history contained secrets, but he never expected to be dragged into one. The lecture hall's holographic display froze mid-presentation as 2 figures in nondescript gray uniforms entered through the rear doors. "Dr. Okonkwo." The taller agent held up credentials that pulsed with authentication markers. Global Security Council. You're needed immediately. His students watched wide-eyed as he was escorted out, whispers already spreading through neural links across campus. 4 hours and 1 hypersonic flight later, Elijah found himself 9 levels beneath Geneva, staring at a biometric scanner older than most nations. Your grandfather's security protocols are still active, explained Director Kwan, the stern-faced woman who had met him upon landing. Kenji Okonkwo helped design this facility in 2082. The system will only admit his genetic lineage. Elijah placed his palm against the scanner. I never knew him. He disappeared before I was born. Disappeared is one word for it, Kwan said as the massive doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Classified is another. The archaic chamber beyond was a technological anachronism. Quantum servers alongside physical document storage. Holographic projectors mounted between paper file systems. The air smelled of ozone and forgotten things. This facility contains records of developmental military projects deemed too sensitive for standard classification, Kwan explained, activating the central terminal. Specifically, the Titan projects. The chamber darkened as a 3-dimensional projection materialized, a humanoid machine that towered over a cityscape, its proportions both beautiful and terrifying. Articulated armor plates shifted as it moved with unexpected grace for something so massive. My God, Elijah whispered. How tall? Atlas one stood at 107 meters. The others varied between 90 and 115. Kwan's voice was clinical. 17 units, each designed for specific combat parameters. The projection change, showing the Titan in combat against something. The footage was degraded, the enemy indistinct except for chitinous reflections and swarm-like movements. What were they fighting? Kwan's expression tightened. That information was compartmentalized. All we know is that the Titan projects were initiated as a last resort defense scenario against a non-terrestrial threat. Elijah moved closer to the hologram, noticing something odd about the machine's movements. The response time is impossible. No remote pilot cold. They weren't remote. Kwan interrupted, loading another file. This is pilot integration footage. Classified level Omega. The new projection showed a human suspended in a translucent chamber, neural probes extended into their spine and cranium. Data streams surrounded them, biological readings alongside interface metrics. As the neural connection deepened, the pilot's vital signs altered dramatically. Brainwave patterns expanding beyond normal human parameters, cellular activity accelerating. The neural integration had unexpected side effects. Kwan continued. Pilots reported expanded consciousness, sensory enhancement, and in later stages, abilities that defied scientific explanation. The footage showed a female pilot, disconnected from the interface, staring at a metal sphere. The object slowly rose from the table, hovering as her eyes tracked it. Telekinesis. Elijah couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. Among other manifestations, the military leadership concluded the neural interface was triggering dormant genetic sequences. They ordered the project terminated and all records sealed. A notification pulsed on Kwan's wrist display. Her face paled as she read it. We've just received word from the Pathfinder. A Concord diplomatic vessel is requesting access to Earth's Guardian weapons, named in an intercepted signal. She looked at Elijah with newfound urgency. Doctor, we need to know if these Titans can be reactivated, and what they were built to fight against. Elijah studied his grandfather's notes on the neural interface design, a cold realization forming. Director, according to this data, the pilots weren't controlling the Titans. He looked up from the schematics. They were becoming them. Antarctica howled around them, wind-driven ice crystals hammering the reinforced hull of the transport vessel. Maya pressed her face to the viewport, watching the blizzard swallow the last hints of daylight. We're approaching the coordinates, announced the pilot, his voice tight with concentration. Ground-penetrating radar shows a massive artificial structure beneath the ice sheet. The diplomatic situation had deteriorated hourly. 3 more Concorde vessels had arrived in Earth orbit, alongside representatives from species humanity had never encountered before. All demanded the same thing: activation of Earth's guardian weapons to confront the approaching threat. The pressure had forced the Security Council to fast-track the Titan recovery operation. Commencing descent, the pilot called as the transport's engines shifted to vertical thrust. The ice below fractured in geometric patterns, revealing a massive circular hatch emblazoned with faded United Nations insignia. Maya felt Elijah's presence beside her. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. The historian's eyes remained fixed on the revealed structure. "I've spent my career studying humanity's past wars," he replied. "Never thought I'd be part of activating a doomsday weapon. If what the Concorde ambassador says is true, these aren't just weapons." Maya watched as landing lights activated automatically along the perimeter of the hatch. "They're our only chance against whatever's coming." The transport settled onto the landing pad as the massive hatch groaned open, revealing a vertical shaft descending into darkness. Hydraulic systems older than anyone aboard engaged, lowering the platform into the earth. "Thermal signature detected," reported the security officer. "Something down there is generating heat." The descent lasted nearly 10 minutes before the platform locked into position with a reverberating clang. Lights activated sequentially, revealing a cathedral-like chamber hewn from Antarctic bedrock. And there, in the center, stood Atlas-1. Even in its dormant state, the Titan was breathtaking. Easily 100 meters tall, its humanoid form gleamed with a metallic surface that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. Unlike the angular military aesthetics Maya had expected, the Titan possessed an almost organic quality, curves and contours suggesting muscle beneath armor. "It's beautiful," she whispered. A shimmering curtain of light materialized before them, coalescing into the translucent figure of a woman in antiquated attire, a scientist's uniform from the previous century. "Welcome to Installation Zero," the hologram greeted them. "I am GAIA, Facility Custodian and Titan Systems Administrator. Biometric scanning indicates 2 potential interface candidates present. Initiating deep genetic analysis." A soft blue light swept over the assembled team. Maya felt a tingling sensation across her skin as the scan penetrated to cellular level. "Analysis complete," JIA announced. "Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen, genetic compatibility with 8-1 neural interface, 97.3%. Dr. Elijah Okonkwo, genetic compatibility with TI-TN12 neural interface, 89.1%. Maya stepped forward. "What does that mean, exactly?" "It means you possess the rare neural genetic markers required to establish synchronization with a Titan's consciousness matrix," JIA explained. "These markers appear in approximately 1 in 1 billion humans." Elijah's scientific skepticism surfaced. "Consciousness matrix. You're implying these machines are sentient?" "Not independently," JIA corrected. "The Titans exist in a state of potential consciousness, requiring human neural patterns to achieve full activation. The interface is symbiotic, not hierarchical." Maya approached the base of the colossal figure, where a transparent chamber waited. Neural connection apparatus hung suspended within, gleaming with surgical precision. "We're receiving reports of attacks at the Ganymede colony," the security officer announced, checking his communications feed. "The Outer Defense Fleet has engaged unknown hostiles." Maya made her decision. "How do we activate it?" Gaia's expression grew solemn. "I must warn you, Commander. Neural integration is irreversible. The changes to your consciousness will be permanent." "Will it hurt?" Maya asked, removing her jacket. "Beyond description," GAIA answered honestly. "But that pain is merely the first threshold of transformation." Maya stepped into the chamber as it sealed around her. The neural probes aligned with her spine as a clear, oxygenated fluid began filling the space. "Commencing neural interface in 3, 2, 1. The probes connected, and Maya's world exploded into infinite light. Her scream echoed through the installation as her consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of her flesh, touching something ancient and vast that had waited millennia for this moment. In the chamber's reflection, her eyes began to glow. Ganymede burned. The Jupiter colony's atmospheric domes fractured in multiple sectors, emergency force fields barely containing catastrophic decompression. Colonial defense vessels, the pride of Earth's outer system fleet, drifted as derelicts, their hulls punctured by weapons that seemed to ignore conventional shielding. Captain Sorensen watched the tactical display with mounting horror as the Pathfinder maintained position at the outer edge of Jupiter's magnetosphere. How many civilians still on the surface? Approximately 8,000 in habitation sectors 3 through 7, his XO replied. Evacuation is at 61% completion. The attackers had emerged from faster-than-light travel without warning, biomechanical ships that resembled monstrous insects, their hulls composed of chitinous material rather than metal. They had ignored all communication attempts and targeted civilian infrastructure first. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice cracked with urgency. Massive energy signature detected entering Jupiter space. It's one of ours." The specialized transport ship designated Prometheus decelerated into normal space, its reinforced cargo bay opening like massive jaws. What emerged defied belief. Atlas I in full activation, its 100-meter frame propelled by thrusters integrated into its back and limbs. "This is Commander Chen." Maya's voice came through comms, somehow both familiar and fundamentally changed. "All UESC vessels withdraw to minimum safe distance. I am engaging hostile forces." Inside the neural interface, Maya experienced reality through expanded perception. The Titan's sensory systems merged with her consciousness, allowing her to perceive electromagnetic spectrums, radiation patterns, gravitational fluctuations, an overwhelming symphony of information that would have driven her insane had the neural link not restructured her thought processes to accommodate it. She felt rather than saw the alien vessels change formation, breaking off their attack on the colony to converge on her position. Their collective consciousness brushed against hers, a chittering, multifaceted hive mind that recoiled in what could only be described as species memory fear. Ancient enemy. Slayer. Anathema. The thoughts weren't words but concepts, emotional imprints leaked from a communal awareness never meant to interface with human consciousness. Yet Maya understood them with perfect clarity. Atlas I moved with fluid grace belying its enormous size, propulsion systems responding to Maya's intent rather than conscious commands. The first alien vessel launched a barrage of energy weapons, beams that bypassed standard defenses by shifting phase in mid-trajectory. Maya didn't evade. Instead, she activated defensive systems that had never appeared in any technical specifications, the Titan's outer layer shifting molecular structure to absorb and redirect the incoming energy. Her counterattack was instinctive. Atlas I's arm, reconfiguring into a weapon that fired compressed gravitational distortions, tearing the alien craft apart at the atomic level. "They recognize us," she transmitted back to the Pathfinder. "Not just the Titan. They recognize what I am becoming." The hive mind pressed against her consciousness again, more focused now, attempting infiltration. Images flooded through the connection. Previous invasions, previous battles. Maya saw humans wielding primitive weapons against the same chitinous enemies, saw great stone constructs animated by forgotten technology, saw earlier iterations of the Titans in different epochs of human history. "They're called the Phagora," she reported, voice distant as she processed millennia of conflict. "They've come before. Many times." With shocking coordination, the remaining Phagora vessels combined their weapons fire on Atlas I's position. The energy discharge was visible from Earth, a flash that briefly outshone Jupiter itself. For 17 agonizing seconds, all contact with the Titan was lost. Then Atlas I emerged from the dissipating energy cloud, its exterior glowing with absorbed power. Maya directed this energy through systems she somehow knew how to operate despite never being trained. The resultant discharge destroyed 3 more alien vessels instantly. The remaining Fagora ships broke formation, retreating toward Jupiter's outer moons before vanishing into FTL jumps. Inside the neural interface chamber, Maya convulsed as blood vessels ruptured throughout her body. Atlas I automatically initiated emergency return protocols, racing back toward the transport ship as Maya's consciousness fractured under the strain. In her mind, she wasn't Maya Chen anymore. She was every pilot who had ever connected with Atlas I. She was every human who had ever stood against the Fagora. And somewhere deep in her genetic memory, she understood why they had come again. Maya awoke in a medical pod, her nervous system still aflame from the interface disconnection. Through the transparent cover, she saw Elijah consulting with physicians, their expressions grave as they reviewed neural scans. Her synaptic architecture is rewiring itself, one doctor explained, pointing to hemispheric changes highlighted in crimson. It's not damage, it's evolution. Gaia's holographic form materialized beside the pod. As anticipated, the pilot's dormant genetic markers have activated. The process cannot be reversed or halted. When they finally released her, Maya discovered her perception had fundamentally altered. Colors had new dimensions, sounds carried emotional imprints, and occasionally she could sense the thoughts of those nearby like whispered conversations. The Global Security Council has authorized Operation Awakening, Director Quan announced during the emergency briefing in Antarctica. Worldwide genomic screening has identified 16 additional candidates with compatible neural markers. Images appeared on the display wall, faces diverse in ethnicity, age, and background. A Brazilian street racer with a criminal record for illegal vehicle modifications, a Norwegian marine engineer specializing in deep-sea pressure systems, a Japanese theoretical physicist whose controversial papers on consciousness had been rejected by mainstream academia. How were they found so quickly? Elijah asked. They weren't, Quan replied. Most were already in government databases, flagged for exceptional abilities or unexplained aptitudes. The markers were always there. We just didn't know what to look for until now. There's something else, Maya interjected, struggling to articulate concepts that came to her through genetic memory rather than conscious thought. These people aren't random. They're descendants. Within 48 hours, candidates began arriving at installations worldwide. Each Titan facility had remained hidden for decades, beneath the Sahara Desert, inside the Mariana Trench, carved into the Himalayas. Some candidates embraced their role immediately. Others required persuasion. Joaquim Santos, the Brazilian racer, stepped into his interface chamber with a grin. So you're saying I get to pilot the biggest, fastest machine ever built? Where do I sign? Others resisted. Dr. Hiroshi Takemura, the physicist, argued fiercely against connecting with Titan 7 until a Fagora scout vessel appeared over Tokyo, its presence ending all debate. The transformations began immediately after neural linking. Joachim's reflexes accelerated to superhuman levels. Security footage showed him catching a falling coffee cup before it had fallen 3 centimeters. Freya Larsen, the Norwegian engineer, developed the ability to sense electromagnetic fields, navigating blindfolded through complex environments by feeling electronic systems operating around her. Most disturbing were the shared dreams. The first reports came just 2 days after the initial linkings, pilots describing identical dreamscapes despite being continents apart. It's always the same battlefield, Maya explained during an emergency conference call. Ancient humans fighting the Fagora with primitive weapons. Then the dream shifts to another era, another battle, but always the same enemy. It's like our DNA contains racial memory of these conflicts. Elijah, still recovering from his own neural linking with Titan 12, displayed his findings. I've been analyzing historical records through this new perception we share. Look at these cave paintings from 30,000 BCE. The images showed stick figures confronting insectoid creatures. And these Sumerian tablets, Norse mythology, Native American legends. They all describe the same invasion cycle with remarkably similar details. It's happening again, Freya added, her voice carrying across continents. But this time, they're coming in force. The scouts were just the beginning. In orbit, Concord sensors detected a massive distortion approaching from deep space, the main Fagora invasion fleet. Earth had 3 weeks at most. During a rare moment of privacy, Maya confronted GAIA with questions that had haunted her dreams. The neural interface was designed to change us, wasn't it? To trigger something already present in our DNA. GAIA's holographic form grew solemn. The Titans are not merely weapons, Commander Chen. They are keys. Keys to what? To what humanity was always meant to become. The Antarctic facility's central chamber had been converted into a war room, holographic displays showing the approaching Fagora fleet, thousands of biomechanical vessels arranged in formations resembling insect swarms. For the first time, all 17 pilots gathered in person, their physical changes now impossible to conceal. Maya's eyes glowed faintly blue when she spoke. Joachim moved with such fluid speed that his gestures sometimes blurred. Hiroshi seemed to exist slightly out of phase with reality, his form occasionally becoming translucent when he concentrated deeply. Each bore unique manifestations of their transformation, yet all felt the inexorable pull toward something greater than themselves. The Concord representatives have requested an emergency summit, Director Kwan announced, gesturing toward the diplomatic feed. They claim to have critical information about the Fagora they've been withholding. Ambassador Thalix appeared on the main display, flanked by representatives from 7 other spacefaring civilizations. His opalescent skin had lost its luster, stress evident even across species barriers. "We can no longer maintain the compact of silence," he began. "The approaching fleet is 10 times larger than any previous Fagora incursion. The truth must be shared." The chamber darkened as ancient stellar maps materialized in 3 dimensions around them. Points of light representing civilizations blinked out sequentially, a galactic history of extinction. For over 100,000 years, the Fagora have moved through our galaxy in cycles of hibernation and consumption, Thalix explained. 17 civilizations have been completely eradicated, dozens more driven back to pre-technological states. Then why fear us? Elijah asked. Why has the Concord always treated humanity with such suspicion? A different alien stepped forward. A crystalline entity that communicated through modulated light pulses. Because you are different, its translator rendered. Every species in the Concord has evolutionary limits, biological or neurological constraints we cannot transcend. It is the natural order. Except for humans, Maya realized. We have no ceiling. Precisely. Thalix's voice carried a mixture of fear and reverence. Your capacity for adaptation exceeds anything we have encountered. Your neural plasticity, your genetic potential, they are unprecedented. When your species began reaching for the stars, many in the Concord advocated for your containment. Maya felt a surge of anger. You would have imprisoned us. Some wanted worse, another representative admitted. But then we discovered your history with the Fagora. They have invaded your world at least 9 times throughout your development, each time driving your civilization back to primitive states before you could achieve your potential. Gaia's hologram expanded, interfacing with the Concord data. This confirms my historical analysis. The Titans were not created solely as weapons, but as catalysts. The central hologram shifted to display a magnified view of human DNA, highlighting specific sequences that pulsed with unusual energy patterns. The neural interfaces are activating dormant genetic sequences, GAIA explained, sequences that do not appear to have evolved naturally. We were engineered, Hiroshi whispered, his scientific mind racing to integrate this revelation. Someone designed us with these capabilities intentionally. But who? Freya asked. And why? The Norwegian's question hung unanswered as alarms blared throughout the facility. On the tactical display, a Fagora advance force had breached the outer solar system, headed directly for Earth. Maya felt a splitting pain behind her eyes as another presence brushed against her consciousness. Vast, alien, and filled with singular purpose. "They're aware of us," she gasped. "Not just the Titans. They can sense what we're becoming." Gaia's expression shifted to one of urgency. "The pilots must return to their Titans immediately. The neural integration must advance to the next phase." "What exactly are we becoming?" Elijah demanded as technicians prepared the interface chambers. The AI's reply was interrupted by a transmission that bypassed all security protocols, appearing on every display simultaneously. The image showed a massive chamber within the largest Fagora vessel, an organic cathedral housing a creature of nightmarish proportions. Part insect, part something unclassifiable, its compound eyes seemed to stare directly at Maya. The abominations awaken, the creature's thoughts translated into words. "Again we come to prune the branch before it bears forbidden fruit." As one, the 17 pilots collapsed, blood streaming from their eyes as the Fagora queen forced her way into their shared consciousness. "Remember, little weapons," she projected. "Remember who forged you, and who you were forged to destroy." Earth's unified defense fleet formed a desperate perimeter at the moon's orbit. Every combat-capable vessel humanity possessed arrayed against the oncoming storm. The first wave of Fagora ships tore through the outer defensive line like tissue paper, their phase-shifting weapons ignoring conventional shields. All civilian centers report evacuation to underground shelters at 93% completion, announced the Global Defense Coordinator. His voice strained as tactical displays showed city after city going dark as power grids were preemptively shut down to minimize targeting profiles. In 17 launch facilities worldwide, the Titans were being prepared for deployment. The pilots, still recovering from the Queen's psychic assault, strapped into their neural interfaces with grim determination. The Fagora Queen's attack wasn't just meant to incapacitate us. Maya communicated to the other pilots through their newly formed neural link. She was searching for something in our genetic memory. "I felt it too," Elijah replied, his thoughts carrying hints of the historian's analytical precision even through the link. She seemed afraid of what we might remember. The synchronization chambers hummed with energy as final launch preparations completed. Maya felt Atlas-One's consciousness unfurling around her own, not as a separate entity, but as an extension of herself, waiting to be embraced. "All Titans, launch authorization granted," came the order from the Unified Command. "May God help us all." The earth trembled as 17 colossal figures rose from their hidden sanctuaries, from beneath Antarctic ice, from oceanic trenches, from mountain fortresses and desert bunkers. As they ascended toward the stratosphere, humanity below watched in awe and terror at the revelation of their secret guardians. Maya felt rather than saw the other Titans joining formation around Atlas-One. Through the neural network, she experienced their ascent from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Freya's AEGS-5 deploying massive shield arrays, Hiroshi's QUANTUM-7 phasing partially out of conventional reality, Joachim's Swift-3 accelerating to impossible velocities. The first engagement occurred in low Earth orbit. The Fagora had established a blockade formation, thousands of smaller craft protecting biomechanical artillery platforms that rained destruction on cities below. The Titans entered the fray with coordinated precision, each utilizing their specialized capabilities. What the Titans lacked in numbers, they compensated for with unprecedented neural coordination. Maya found herself instinctively extending her consciousness further, creating bridges between the separate pilot interfaces. As the battle intensified, the distinction between individual pilots blurred. "We are stronger together," Maya projected, not in words but pure conceptual thought. The other pilots responded, their consciousnesses merging into a collective entity that maintained individual identity while achieving perfect synchronization. Through this expanded awareness, they perceived patterns in the Fagora attack strategy invisible to conventional analysis, weaknesses in their hive mind coordination that could be exploited. Witnesses on Earth, and in orbital habitats described the battle in terms more appropriate for natural disasters than combat. Energy discharges that outshone the sun, gravitational distortions that bent light around the combatants, temporal anomalies that caused sections of the battlefield to experience time at different rates. Inside the neural collective, the pilots discovered they could share more than tactical information. Abilities manifested in one pilot transferred to others. Hiroshi's phase shifting, Freya's electromagnetic manipulation, Joachim's hyperacceleration. Atlas I suddenly demonstrated capabilities never designed into its systems, borrowing functions from the other Titans through Maya's expanded consciousness. The Fagora responded by intensifying their hive mind control, sacrificing thousands of drone ships in suicidal attacks. For each Titan damage, hundreds of enemy vessels were destroyed, yet the sheer numerical advantage began to tell. Aegis V lost an arm defending a population center in Australia. 2 OSSUS-9 suffered critical damage protecting orbital habitats. At the moment when defeat seemed inevitable, the neural collective detected a massive gravitational distortion as the Fagora Queen's vessel emerged from hyperspace, a living cathedral of chitin and bone that dwarfed even the largest Earth battleships. Its arrival sent a psychic shockwave through the neural network, temporarily disrupting the pilot's connection. Maya felt the other's presence torn from her mind as Atlas I tumbled through low orbit, systems fluctuating under the psychic assault. The Queen's voice penetrated their consciousness again, more powerful at close range. "We gave you form, little weapons. We can unmake you just as easily." Through failing systems, Maya witnessed the Queen's vessel positioning above Antarctica, directly over Installation Zero, Earth's most critical Titan facility. The implication was clear. The Fagora knew exactly where to strike to end humanity's resistance permanently. Drawing on strength she didn't know she possessed, Maya forced Atlas I's propulsion systems back online and set an intercept course. There would be no reinforcements. The other Titans were engaged across the globe, fighting desperate holding actions. She would face the Queen alone. Atlas I rocketed through the upper atmosphere, trailing ionized particles as Maya pushed the Titan's propulsion systems beyond design limits. The Queen's vessel hung above Antarctica like a malevolent star, its organic surface rippling with weapons deployment. Inside the neural interface, Maya had never felt more alone. The collective connection with the other pilots remained severed, leaving only the base link with Atlas I. Warning indicators flooded her consciousness, structural integrity compromised, power reserves depleting, neural synchronization approaching critical thresholds. GAIA, she transmitted to Installation Zero below. "I need options." The A's response came fragmented through Fagora jamming. The Queen's psychic assault targeted specific neural pathways, those associated with genetic memory. "She fears what you might remember." "Remember what?" Maya demanded as Atlas I breached the defensive screen surrounding the Queen's vessel, destroying 3 interceptors with a gravitational pulse. "Your origin. The truth of the progenitors." The Queen's ship opened like a grotesque flower, revealing the entity within. Unlike her drone soldiers, the Queen possessed a disturbing beauty. Her chitinous exoskeleton, arranged in patterns of mathematical precision, compound eyes reflecting starlight in hypnotic arrays. Her size rivaled Atlas I itself, evolved for command rather than mere combat. At last, face to face, the Queen's thoughts invaded Maya's mind. The weapon meets its creator. A massive tendril lashed out, wrapping around Atlas I's torso. Instead of physical damage, Maya felt the Queen attempting to override the neural interface, forcing direct connection to her consciousness. "You're not my creator," Maya responded, fighting the intrusion. "But we are. The progenitors took our essence, our genetic material, and crafted your species as living weapons against us. When we discovered their plan, we destroyed them, but their final act was to hide your world, to let you develop until needed." Memories cascaded through Maya's mind, not her own, not even human. She witnessed the ancient war between the Phagora and the crystalline progenitors, saw the latter's defeat and desperate final gambit, the genetic engineering of a predator species specifically designed to counter Phagora evolution. If that's true, Maya struggled to maintain coherence as the Queen's psychic pressure intensified. Then why return? Why not leave Earth alone? Because you were designed without limits. The Queen's thought voice carried something approaching fear. All species reach evolutionary plateaus they cannot transcend. It is the universal constant. But you were engineered to evolve continuously, to adapt beyond all natural constraints. Each time you approach transcendence, we return to prune the branch, to reset your development. It is necessary. The neural interface chamber within Atlas I began to crack as Maya's body underwent spontaneous changes, cellular structures reorganizing, neural pathways multiplying exponentially. The pain was excruciating, yet through it came clarity. You're not containing a threat, Maya realized. You're preventing competition. With sudden insight, Maya stopped fighting the Queen's psychic invasion. Instead, she opened herself completely, but reversed the flow, pushing her consciousness into the Queen's hive mind. The maneuver caught the Phagora matriarch unprepared. Maya's awareness expanded through the Queen into the entire Phagora collective. Billions of minds connected in perfect unity, yet utterly devoid of individuality. She understood their fear, not of extinction, but of change. The Phagora had achieved perfect evolutionary stasis, unchanging for millions of years. In that moment of connection, Maya made her choice. Rather than attacking physically, she introduced a concept foreign to the collective: individual consciousness. The psychic shock rippled through the hive mind, each drone suddenly experiencing autonomy for the first time in their existence. The Queen's scream resonated across all frequencies as her control shattered. The massive vessel convulsed, weapon systems deactivating as confusion spread through the ranks. Across Earth, the Phagora assault faltered as their perfect coordination collapsed. Maya felt her consciousness snapping back to her body, but change expanded beyond human limitations. The neural interface could no longer contain her awareness. Atlas I's systems registered one final command before Maya transcended the need for physical controls. Observers from Earth witnessed Atlas I glowing from within, energy cascading across its frame as it separated from the Queen's ship. The Titan seemed to dissolve into pure energy before reforming, its structure now incorporating elements that defied conventional analysis. The Phagora fleet began systematic withdrawal, their remaining vessels collecting disoriented drones. The Queen's final transmission reached not just Maya, but all 17 pilots simultaneously. You have chosen a dangerous path, cousins. Individual consciousness brings suffering alongside freedom. Evolution without end brings transformation without certainty. We sought to spare you this burden. It was never your choice to make, Maya responded, her thoughts reaching the retreating Queen across the void of space. We accept the risk of becoming. In the aftermath, the 17 pilots gathered one final time in Antarctica. Each had been fundamentally transformed, their bodies mere vessels for consciousness that had expanded beyond physical constraints. They represented the first step in humanity's next evolutionary leap. What happens now? Elijah asked, his historian's curiosity undimmed by transformation. Maya looked toward the stars, sensing distant worlds, distant possibilities. Now we become what we were always meant to be. Not weapons, not tools, but evolution's champions, and we help others find their own way forward. Above them, the Concorde vessels maintained respectful distance. The age of containment had ended. The age of transcendence had begun.